in my view, an important milestone as GSMC cements its model of training, which is about engaging industry in training. I think one of the biggest and most enduring criticisms of the academy is that it's ivory tower, it's out there, and you train people who go into the industry and everybody wonders where they've been before they just got here. I had a discussion with the CEO of CUE about journalism training. I think in past years we've received students from Nation or Standard who have not, in their past lives as journalists in training, even held a camera, even interviewed somebody to write their own stories. I think that's just atrocious. And I asked the CEO of CUE why such universities still keep accreditation for training journalists. But I think what we want to do here at GSMC is to really change that and make sure that the journalists that we train, even though some of them have more experience than some of us in journalism, really maintain contact and see the presence of their colleagues who have made tremendous contributions in the media house. So whenever I see Joe Dindo, Warungu at GSMC, I take so much pride, and it's always delightful because we're very confident that the journalists who come to us are not just being trained on the theoretical frontiers of good writing, storytelling, et cetera, but that they're learning from people who've walked those corridors, who have sat on those desks, who have been editors themselves, who have been in the newsroom for many years and still can keep that grounding present in the classroom, even as we aspire to provide access to higher education, especially in journalism. I know this is not new, but everybody believes that the media and informed societies are at a crossroad. The media business, the media industry is pummeled by all kinds of economic pressures that emerged from the pandemic, but even before the pandemic. Journalists are working under strenuous conditions. In many cases, they're hounded by politicians who don't like the stories they tell. But I think this gathering, the media, the Editors Guild is really the apex of media leadership, because that's where you find everybody who makes those critical decisions to put the stories that we read in the newspapers. So that role is pivotal, but that role is under stress, and those responsibilities are now even more challenged. And I'm delighted that AKU also offers the Executive Masters in Media Leadership and Innovation. I think there's tremendous contribution we can make to bolster and enhance the capacities of media leaders to be able to perform the critical roles and obligations that they have in the media industry, especially when innovation becomes the second name of a journalist. You can no longer divorce those two things. Yes, you're a great writer, but you've got to be an entrepreneur, an innovator. We have to unlearn and relearn new techniques and new ways of doing business, especially in this challenging environment. What I would really want to see coming out of this partnership, because you can sign MOUs to the moon, but the question is, are we going to breathe life and action and activity in the MOU, so that we see that revolving door of journalists coming into GSMC? And one of the things that when I was interim dean at GSMC, that I had discussed with Nancy, is I want to see some of our colleagues like Sam and Nancy go spend time sabbaticals in the news house. Because the problem is going to be, they're going to be training people who are more grounded in the action than they are, and it becomes a problem. When they know more than you, when the last time you produced a story, you can't even remember, it becomes a problem. So I would like us to see that traffic move back into the newsroom. We bring journalists into our training spaces, but we also want to see our professors spend time in the newsroom producing stories, being in the front line of some of these major events that will catapult the media to the next frontier. So that's also something that I think should be a part of this MOU. How do we get our professors, and not just AKU, and now in my position, even with CUE, we can influence some of these things. I think some of the frontiers that are still yet to be conquered include, formalizing adjunct arrangements that formally bring industry players into the academy in their rightful roles. And this is something that we have to push with the regulators, to bring journalists into the academy with appropriate ranking titles in the adjunct nature to actually teach and have CUE recognize those as critical. It's not just a problem that is with journalists, it's also with law, it's also with business, it's also with medicine, where academic titles by themselves do not give you the credentials to practice that you should have. Because a doctor is just a doctor. It's a craft, and it's what you have to do. The same thing with journalism. So how do we make sure that we're not propagating a culture that premieres academic credentials at the total expense of journalistic professional capability? We need to figure out some kind of middle ground. And I think in the old classical way of doing business, we need the media to lobby for this. And I think the Editors Guild is an important platform for lobbying, for creating that buzz and a conversation to help move some of these things hopefully in a different direction. So mine is just to say this is well done. It is the first step. The MOU, you can stack them to the moon, but they will not do what you need done. We need to create the relationships then that help move these things forward. And that relationship is in creating those platforms and opportunities for the academy to exchange constantly with the media, with the professionals through the Editors Guild, but beyond the Editors Guild. Because the Editors Guild is just the college of the leadership of the media. But we have journalists out there who also need to have access to some of the things that we do. So how does the Editors Guild become an honest broker for these kinds of conversations? Many months ago, we talked about continuing professional education, credentialing, proper credentialing of journalists, so that they can actually, at the end of every year, show some improvement, some gains in their professional practice. AKU can offer those kinds of courses to bring journalists, just the way we do with nurses, with doctors, to maintain their license, to come and do some CPD points. And say if you do several seminars of this kind, it helps you renew your... So I'm not amused that the Media Council of Kenya isn't here. Because I think this is where we, unless I don't recognize some of the representatives in the room, but the leadership should have been here to have these discussions. I think we have to be serious as a society to move journalism to that same rank and recognition as other professions. And there are many universities now offering courses in journalism and media that can be a part of that, to create some serious credentialing for journalists on a continuing basis, to also upskill if they don't have a chance to come to AKU for some of the short courses that we have. So thank you very much. Churchill, it's good to see you. And Rosalia, we are grateful for the leadership and the stewardship of the Editors Guild, and we hope that we will build on this foundation today in the years to come. Thank you very much.